Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. Meteorologist Greg Soulje is with us here today on this Friday. Welcome, Greg.
Hello, Sarah. Nice to have you back with us. Hope the get together down there at in Atlanta went well. It looks like you folks got in and out in relatively good order right after the impacts of that storm just a few days ago.
It was there were a few folks that were rerouted, not on our team, but it was the first day was a little slow because people were coming in a little late, but no real ice impacts downtown there on the show. Now next week we're heading to NCBA CattleCon in Nashville, so hopefully the same experience, but I hear it could be a little cold down there. I think they still got some ice on those trees, but hopefully they're getting out of that situation as well.
Yeah, I think they're at least yesterday there were still 250,000 customers without power in western Tennessee, west of there, parts of northern Louisiana and Arkansas. So hopefully day by day they're getting that whole grid system up and ready to go because there's more cold air in sight for them and another East Coast storm we're going to be talking about here in just the next couple of minutes.
Well, let's get at it.
All right, and here we go, off and running on a Friday, the next to last day of the month of January, winging right on through February, getting ready to roll upon us here, beginning on Sunday. And here's really the highlights and the headlines weather-wise going forward over the next couple of days. And it's really a cold air focused from the lower lakes region down to eastern Texas and parts of Florida, that north end of Florida citrus. It's kind of either side of I-4 if you're familiar with Florida in that Ocala area, north of Frostproof around the Lake Okeechobee area, west of there. We're nipped a little bit earlier in the week, and there may be another round of even somewhat colder weather penetrating maybe at least a pretty decent fetch into parts of South Florida citrus. Frostproof Florida is kind of the marking zone that begins that. So we'll have to keep an eye on it going forward. And out there towards Max's place, out there in the Carolinas, 6 to 12 inches of snow that will precede the cold air dump into the southeastern part of the country and parts of southern New England. We'll get into some of that snow. Different character, shorter duration, more of a high wind and heavy snow event where some of those areas were Raleigh, Durham, east of Asheville, maybe the outer banks of the Carolinas, 6 to 12 inches of snow expected out there. So that's really the focus of headlines going forward for the foreseeable future. In any event, back this way and closer to home, you can see the advisories, the shades of red across the Carolinas and the northeastern and eastern Georgia. Atlanta likely to see some accumulating snow. That's some cold air alerts already up and hoisted for the western reaches of Alabama and through Mississippi, and some winter weather stuff coming out of the western parts of the Dakotas and eastern Big Sky country as we try to begin to, at least after the weekend, moderate, don't necessarily want to call it warmer. It won't be that across the Corn Belt. Although if you put the math together, they'll be swing in the more positive direction of some 30 or 40 degrees, but winds will be involved, and at least we'll get within a few degrees of seasonal norms over some of these northern and eastern Corn Belt locales after, again, a pretty good dump of cold air in association with that East Coast storm. There's the visible satellite, the infrared satellite picture from this morning, and really a couple of areas of brighter clouds, hence higher clouds, hence bearing moisture clouds. That's in the Pacific Northwest. You can see a stream of cloudiness coming out of Mexico into the Rio Grande Valley of Texas with developing low pressure there. You can see that circulation into areas just north of the Metroplex. Another weak system making its way out of areas of the Dakotas and upper Midwest. That's the next Arctic boundary coming southward. So bits and pieces of the storm are going to come together over the southeastern part of the country and roll up the eastern seaboard, and actually some rain into parts of coastal sections of the Pacific Northwest. And there's the upper air configuration. That is a pretty sharp, as we call it in weather forecasting lingo, sharp shortwave or upper trough. You can see that thing pivoting out of the northern plains to the Great Lakes region and points east and south from there. It's kind of what we call a southwest or retrograding upper trough, and that tends to back the winds off of Lake Michigan, and it's how we get some of these lake effect snows to move into the Wisconsin and Illinois side of lake effect snow events for folks who kind of enjoy that type of thing. And so that's the process that is getting underway. But in any event, that system up through the Great Lakes and the northern plains, a little ripple making its way over the southwestern states, so all help to spin up a pretty impressive low or two making its way up the eastern seaboard over the next couple of days. You can see some of these lows meandering through the southeastern states. Northeast. A little bit of moisture breaking out across the central Appalachians. A little rain, snow mix, and some freezing rain across areas of the Dakotas, Nebraska, and a pretty quiet weather pattern across the Pacific Northwest, except for the aforementioned shower activity in the coastal sections of Washington State. So going forward, the cold weather firmly entrenched. Some moderation begins next week, down well below 20 below again this morning into parts of Minnesota, eastern North Dakota, probably some sub-zero cold over the weekend, all the way down into our part of the world here in northern Illinois, into Iowa, and probably actually going into parts of central Illinois and northern Missouri with time. A couple of snow showers around the Great Lakes region on the Wisconsin and Illinois side, then moving into the Indiana and lower Michigan side. The wide open waters of Lake Superior and Lake Michigan are in contrast to now frozen waters in Lake Erie. Shallow, smaller body of water, so that should cut down on the lake effect snow events in parts of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and the lower lakes region. So that process is underway there, but I think still upper 30s, I think, is the average temperature so far in some of these open water areas of Lake Michigan at last glance. So that's pretty balmy, even with the degree of cold we've experienced here so far in the wintertime season. So chilly and cold across the Dakotas and actually through all areas southward into the eastern plains, a little light snow mix into parts of the Dakotas, South Dakota and Nebraska. Mild weather in the high plains areas will kind of eke to about the Missouri and then hit the skids going forward mid to late next week. And we'll get this temperature discontinuity and begin to flatten out the jet stream. And that's usually the indicator of we're going to get more busy weather systems to contend with. We talked about wintertime and, a more active weather pattern getting into February and March. Looks like that's going to come to fruition. Double-edged sword on the snow cover across the central and southern plains, melting, percolating into the soils, but there are bare ground areas farther north into parts of Nebraska and more so through parts of Kansas and Nebraska. In any event, and widespread snow cover over the rest of the northern and eastern plains all the way down to Texas, Great Lakes, Corn Belt, northeastern New England. I think it's like 55% of the country covered in snow when just about a week to 10 days ago, it was just 25%. If you squint, you can see nighttime lows tonight are heading down in that top right panel, down well below zero through the upper Midwest. Daytime readings tomorrow in a wide range in that bottom left panel, but still in the teens and 20s from the Great Lakes on southward, single digits into the upper lakes and northern plains. And again, another run of some near and below zero cold into the eastern Corn Belt locales for Saturday night into Sunday morning, and that bitter cold relative to the southeast is moving straight south and southeastward. We'll take a look at some of those low temperatures in just a second. Florida freezes widespread in that I-4 Lake Okeechobee, Ocala area. Back in the 28th and 29 degrees. So they had to have assessments, and they are doing assessments down there, and they had to have those smudge pots and sprinkling systems going. They'll do it again here going forward with the next round of even colder air building on in over the course of Sunday and into Monday. That'll be part of that mid-Atlantic storm system. Meanwhile, pretty quiet across the west, pretty mild air stagnation issues through California, some rain across sections of western Oregon and Washington State. Meanwhile, numbers, and we talked about this, that La Nina setups are usually not conducive to getting moisture in the southwestern mountains, the Sierra ranges. You'll get a couple of spells, and we did have that atmospheric river setup, but the snow levels were high. So we had a lot of rain, not much snow. And snow, if you take the snow pack, melt it, and take it into the form of rain, that's only 30% of normal so far that we've seen for the winter precip time season, and what's in those peaks as well as of late January. Woefully significant deficit to contend with and think about going forward into the run-off season and the watershed season as we move out of the wetter season and into the warmer days across the southwestern reaches of the country. So probably some expanding dryness and drought-related issues there with time. Now, on to Argentina. Well, I think a lot of the trades and even some of the forecast services have been getting some varying accounts of what's really going on of late into Argentina with regard to rainfall. But for what we've been able to piece together, some of those northeastern areas that were dry stayed that way, while southern areas of Argentina, and in particular that La Pampa area, did see some light to moderate quarter to 3/4 inch local 1-inch rainfall. Eastern areas of Buenos Aires remain dry. So the usual variants of summertime or wintertime rains continue to go on there. At least there's been some cooling of temperatures. So things are looking a little more, bullish in parts of some of the drier reaches of Argentina for now. Early planted corn is in the flowering grain fill stages. Late planted crops are in better condition coming off the recent rain. So all of a sudden we've made this pivot from woefully dry and moisture deficit areas, which are still in existence, especially in central Argentina, to a little better go of it. So that's the story pretty much down there. Soybeans across the corridor are showing still a little more stress, and they've been sort of the hotter corridor as well. So maybe just it's the usual variance that we deal with across the Corn Belt locales is really what's going on into Argentina, especially in some of those dry, drought-ridden areas. So some rain, not great rain. Other fortunate areas continue to be just that. Others are kind of limping along. So I think still the headline, the market stuff continues to be coming out of central and southern Argentina. Can't get anything else going on. Even the temperatures have cooled across Brazil. Widespread rains, and especially some of the drier eastern areas, 1/4 to 1, some spots up to 2 inches. Those southeastern areas, less than 1/4 inch. Temperatures a little more moderate, seasonal, probably 1 to 2 degrees below average. The hottest of the readings have been around that Mato Grosso do Sul area, upper 90s to low 100s. Some early season first planted corn is getting ready to be harvested, or at least in the final stages of grain fill. Soybean development varied, and across the Rio Grande area, Rio Grande do Sul, again, weather tends to favor some pretty good late season development, maturity, and early harvest operation. So the beat goes on there with a little hop, skip, and a jump, but still in relatively good order. And I'm sure, I think that second crop that's going to be coming out of Brazil, I believe Farm Futures had a story on that over the past day or so. That's nothing to be dismissed from a market standpoint. So they continue to grind away and crank away on corn and soybeans across South America, and especially in particular Brazil. Domestically, snow showers and flurries down into the Great Lakes areas, a little stuff going through the Plain States. You can see that developing system across areas of the southeastern states as we move on through this afternoon and through this evening. Snow's breaking out eastern Kentucky and in around the Cumberland Gap area, and a little dusting across the central and southern Corn Belt. There'll be maybe a few inches northeast Illinois, pivoting into northwest Indiana, lake effect style. And out across the Plain States, by the time we get to tomorrow morning, you can see those south winds. They'll blow pretty good and push temperatures into thaw-free cycles either side of the Black Hills northward to about the Montana line, where there may be a spell of some freezing rain and sleet along with the snow as the rains come on down through Florida, and the snows come on down into northeastern Georgia and the Carolinas on 30 to 40 mile an hour, probably gust to 50 mile an hour winds. And they'll have some strong winds too into Florida, and those open waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico may have some gusts and gales to 45 to 50 knots for those boaters down there. And I'd seen some information, some of the National Weather Service offices into Florida. This kind of makes sense. You know how we get the lake effect here? The air will be cold enough to probably, I would be surprised, at least in that Big Bend area, the Big Bend area of the northeastern Gulf, to get some, I don't know, what do you call them? Gulf effect snow showers maybe going. I wouldn't be surprised that we're going to see something on social come from that particular area, the Big Bend area of Tallahassee, Panama City, north of obviously Tampa. But there may be some snow in the northeastern and open waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, kind of a lake effect, but Gulf effect style going on. Anyway, you can see that storm winding up the weather pressure lines over the eastern Carolinas. Our favorite places out there, Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, they had probably a foot of snow. I wonder how that looks on the beaches. As snows break out through the upper Midwest and western Great Lakes region on Sunday. Next couple of days, most of the moisture into the northern plains, coastal sections of Washington State, and you can see the water equivalency. And that will be a wet packing snow at 1/2 to 1.5 inches into the Carolinas. From the snowstorm. Drought monitor from the 27th. We were down in Gordyville a week or 10 days ago, and the talk continues to be 13 to 16 inch moisture deficit since the start of 2025 in Champaign County. And the question is, well, we need to make improvements. We got to get in the fields. We don't want it all to come at once. So that's going to be the conundrum, finding the right balance in some of these eastern Corn Belt locales going forward into the spring planting season. Some worsening drought over the southern plains, the southeastern states, and across the central and southern Rockies. There's a little closer snapshot creeping into Champaign County, out through Piatt County as well, Ford County in the Illinois side, and expanding out towards Ball State and into the northwestern reaches of Ohio. The snow cover as of the 9th of January, the snow cover as of the 30th of January. Yeah, about 50% of the nation. Still a lot of it on the ground. That's where we're getting some of our coldest readings. Clear skies, light wind, fresh or some exists as the snow cover, and temperatures bottom out. And they'll do so again over the back end of the weekend, early next week across the Ohio River Valley. Going forward, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can see that storm system, that trough swinging out to sea. Another one follows in and seals between Tuesday and Wednesday, and another moving in for late Thursday, Friday over the northern and eastern plains Corn Belt locales. And that's probably a good snapshot of how the upper air pivots or plays out, and then pivots a little more flattening, as we call it, where systems are going to come what we call over the top of the ridge, energize over the central and southern plains, swing through the Ohio going forward into February and March. And that is a classic busier, more active winter pattern, and at times a stormier weather pattern. You can see one such feature, but tracking through the upper Midwest and the northern plain states with a healthy dose of wind, a little uptick in temperatures, a downward push on them, and a little mixed moisture one form or another Thursday and Friday on that particular set of charts. Next moisture pattern the next 7 days is impressive, but probably all snow, a little rain too for areas of the Tennessee Valley, lower Mississippi Valley, and points on east and a pretty good covering through the northern plains. So we've talked about the wind driven snow event across the Carolinas. As far north as southern New England, significant freezes for the first few days of February. Don't get me going on the groundhog thing. That's Monday, I believe, all the way into probably south central Florida. So that's the coldest weather they may experience since back about 16 years ago, January of 2010. We'll keep an eye on the citrus and winter vegetables down there. And otherwise, the mixed moisture across the steep south and southeastern states and another dump of cold air moving on in. That will keep temperatures Monday, Tuesday, not as cold, but cold enough, teens and 20s. With daytime readings of the 40s and 50s over the southeast, 50s and 60s down through Florida. Cold air trying to relax at some point late in the week, but still running at or a bit below average. There is a look at nighttime lows dropping into the probably upper 20s to mid 30s along in south of I-4 to central and southwest Florida. 0, or at least single digits probably to the Ohio Valley. And we still stay colder than average with some recurring frost and freezes in the southeastern states as late as Friday. There's the next 2 weeks from the upper air perspective. And as we call it, kind of flattening, where that upper ridge in the western part of the country kind of sags southward. The trough is over the eastern part of the country. Disturbances track along the middle part of that flow. And so it becomes far busier. And this is kind of the right idea, maybe a little exuberant on the western Corn Belt temperatures over the next 2 weeks. And a little not as active as we would like to see. The right idea with a return of more normal moisture across the plains and upper Midwest. So kind of the right idea, but not completely correct. But that's the outlook going into the first week or two of the month of February. I think much busier across the country. And we'll update the rest of the winter, sneak peek of the springtime, and whatever else comes to mind here in the live stream on the 18th of February. That's a Wednesday, 1 o'clock Central Time, Sarah.
Very good. Well, so what do you think? Is the groundhog going to see its shadow? I'm going to get you going on it, Greg.
No, you got that Puxatawny Phil thing going on in Pennsylvania. So that's Monday. He probably is going to see a shadow. Then you've got Ori told me about a rattlesnake in Phoenix. There's some creature that comes out of the ground in Atlanta, of all places. Sun Prairie, Wisconsin is another place that has a groundhog. So, to each his own. We'll leave it at that.
But still, I mean, we're 50 days from spring?
Yeah, it's a math thing. Right? It's a math thing. So that's all. So,
all good.
What's important? See, if I see my shadow on Monday, right?
There you go. You go outside. You go pop out of a hole and see if you see your shadow.
That's right. We'll do a special broadcast.
There we go. All right. We'll talk to you on Tuesday, Greg,
yes.
And you can let us know if you saw your shadow at that point.
We'll do. Until then, have a good weekend.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.